We're setting the scene in Makkah, in the 13th year of prophethood. That's around 622 CE. For the early Muslim community, things had gone from bad to worse. The pressure was just unbearable. What happened next wasn't just a move from one city to another, it was a journey that would literally change the course of human history. This is the story of the Hijrah.
Now, imagine hearing these words at a moment of absolute despair. A companion, just completely worn down by the constant persecution, comes to the Prophet, peace be upon him, basically begging for help. And this was the answer he got. Not just comfort, but a vision of a future so peaceful, so secure that it must have sounded absolutely impossible at the time.
So the story really kicks off in the shade of the Kaaba. A companion named Khabbab bin al-Arat, who had suffered immensely, goes to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and he pleads, "Would you seek help for us? Would you pray to Allah for us?" You can just feel the sheer exhaustion and pain in those words.
But the Prophet's response, well, it wasn't what you might expect. Instead of just an immediate prayer for everything to stop, he gave them something more powerful: perspective. He reminded them of believers from the past, people who faced torture you can't even imagine, being sawed in half, combed with iron, and yet they never, ever gave up their faith. This was a lesson in pure fortitude, getting them ready for what was still to come. And this verse from the Qur'an really drives the point home. The divine message was crystal clear. Your faith demands action. You can't just stay in a place where your religion is being crushed if you have a way out. It basically established this obligation to move, to emigrate, to find a place where faith could actually breathe and grow. The Hijrah was no longer just an idea, it was becoming a necessity. Now, some Muslims had found a temporary safe haven in Abyssinia years before, but those options were quickly vanishing. Abu Bakr himself had even tried to leave, but he was stopped by a powerful chief who basically said, "You can stay, but you have to practice your faith behind closed doors." With all the peaceful exits being blocked off, the leaders in Makkah started to see a real threat. So the chiefs of Quraysh called an emergency meeting at their version of a parliament, Dar An-Nadwah, and they had one thing on their agenda.
The sources paint this incredibly chilling scene. A mysterious old man from a region called Najd, who the texts say was actually Iblis, or Satan in disguise, shows up to their meeting. So they toss around ideas. First step, imprisonment. The old man immediately shoots it down, saying his followers would just break him out. Okay, plan B, exile. The old man rejects that too, saying he'd just go somewhere else, gather an army, and come back stronger. And that's when Abu Jahl steps up with the final terrible solution: a coordinated assassination, with one man from every single tribe striking at the same time. This way, the blame is spread so thin that no one can retaliate. And with that simple, chilling endorsement from the mysterious stranger, the deal was done. The plan was locked in. The danger wasn't just a vague threat anymore. It was real, it was immediate, and it was deadly. But here's the thing. While these men were scheming in the shadows, a divine plan was already unfolding. The angel Jibril came down and warned the Prophet, peace be upon him, about the entire plot. He was told, "Do not sleep in your bed tonight." The escape was on. The Prophet, peace be upon him, didn't waste a second. He went straight to the house of his best friend, Abu Bakr, but he went at high noon. Now, this was a brilliant move because in the scorching midday heat of Makkah, the streets were completely empty. It was the perfect time to have a meeting that nobody would notice as they prepared for what was easily the most important journey of their lives. Once inside, the Prophet asked Abu Bakr to have everyone leave the room, but Abu Bakr just replied, "It's only your family here." That's when the Prophet told him, "I've been given permission to migrate." Now, think about this. Abu Bakr's first question wasn't about the danger or the plan or where they were going. It was simply, "Shall I accompany you?" And when the Prophet said yes, Abu Bakr didn't feel fear. He cried. He literally wept with joy. And here's another stroke of genius. Instead of heading north towards Medina, their destination, they went south, the complete opposite direction, to a rugged cave called Thawr. For 3 nights, this cave was their entire world. And they had this amazing support system. Abu Bakr's own son, Abdallah, would bring them all the latest news from Makkah. And a freed slave named Amir would bring his flock of sheep over their path to wipe away their tracks. It was an incredible feat of planning, secrecy, and trust. Then came the moment of absolute heart-stopping danger. The trackers, the pursuers, they were good. So good that they ended up standing right at the entrance of the cave.
The tension must have been just off the charts. Abu Bakr whispered his fear. They were so close, a single glance downwards and it was all over. And the Prophet's reply is one of the most powerful displays of faith you will ever come across. He calmed his friend with this simple, profound question. He shifted his focus from the men standing right above them to the divine presence that was right there with them. Even after they got back on the road, the danger was far from over. There was a huge bounty on their heads, and a tracker named Suraqa bin Jusham was determined to claim it. He caught up to them, he was closing in, but as he got ready to attack, something impossible happened. His horse's legs just sank into the hard, solid desert ground. He got it out, tried again, and the same thing happened. He knew right then that he was dealing with something beyond him. Suraqa ended up begging for a letter of safety, and in return, the Prophet asked him to just keep their whereabouts a secret. In an instant, a pursuer had become a protector. Meanwhile, up in Medina, you can just imagine the atmosphere. The believers there were waiting. Every single morning, they'd go out to the edge of the city, to these black lava fields, and just watch the horizon. They'd wait and wait under that blazing sun until they just couldn't take the heat anymore, and then they'd go home, only to do it all over again the next day. And then, one day, it finally happened. A Jewish man who was up on a watchtower saw two figures way off in the shimmering heat. He knew exactly who it was, and he yelled out the news for the whole city to hear. That was it. The waiting was over. You can just imagine the explosion of joy, the shouts of praise, as everyone in Medina rushed out to welcome them. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, first stopped on the outskirts of the city, in a place called Quba. He stayed there for 14 nights, and it was there that he laid the foundations for the very first mosque in Islam. When he finally entered Medina proper, he let his camel roam free. It eventually knelt down on a piece of land that belonged to two young orphans. Now, people wanted to just give him the land, but he refused. He insisted on paying the full price for it. And right there, on a foundation of total fairness, the Prophet's mosque was established. But see, the Hijrah wasn't just about building up buildings. It was about building a society, a whole new kind of society. And to do that, the Prophet, peace be upon him, created this incredible bond of brotherhood. He paired every single person who emigrated from Makkah, they were called the Muhajirun, with a local from Medina, who became known as the Ansar, which means the helpers. And this next story, it tells you everything you need to know about this brotherhood. The Ansar, the helpers, they offered everything. One of them, Sa'd bin al-Rabi, told his new brother, Abdurrahman bin Auf, "I'm one of the richest men here. I will literally split everything I own in half and give it to you." But the Muhajirun, the emigrants, responded with such dignity. Abdurrahman's reply became legendary. He said, "May Allah bless you and your family and your property. I don't need a handout. Just show me where the market is." And he wasn't kidding. He went to the market, and through his own hard work and business sense, he quickly became a success. It wasn't long before he had earned enough to pay for his own marriage dowry. It was this perfect balance, you see. Radical, unbelievable generosity met with this dignified self-reliance. That became the social and economic engine of this brand new community. So think about how significant this journey was. It was so foundational, so important, that it marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar. Not the Prophet's birth, not the first revelation. Year one begins with the Hijrah. Why? Because this was the moment that the idea of a Muslim community, the Ummah, stopped being just a concept and became a real, physical, functioning society. So when we talk about Hijrah, we're talking about so much more than just a migration. It represents a massive shift, a transition from being persecuted to forming a community, from a position of weakness to one of strength. It's why one of the first lessons taught in Medina was that actions are judged by their intentions. The physical journey was one thing, but the intention behind it, to build a society based on faith, justice, and brotherhood, that was everything. In every way that matters, this was year one. So, to wrap it all up, you can remember this incredible, epic story with just 4 simple words, the 4 Ps. It all started with persecution, that crushing pressure back in Makkah. It was set in motion by the plot to end the Prophet's life. The journey itself was made possible only by divine protection at every single step. And it all led to the final P, partnership, that amazing brotherhood that built a brand new world in Medina. The story of the Hijrah is just this timeless saga of faith, of incredible strategy, and of immense courage. But it also leaves us with this huge question, one that's just as relevant today as it was 1400 years ago. What does it really mean to build a society, not on race or land or language, but on the foundations of a shared faith and a true, genuine partnership?